Even a year ago, when I'd first started taking this channel seriously, if you told me that I'd ever make a video like this, I'd have said you had an overdue appointment with your nearest mental institution, but here I am. Yesterday, somebody on the Discord, which will be linked below for anyone who wants in on our weird study group, linked a video talking about Pythagoras, linking his life and times to today's political climate, and I do see their point, but that's not what I want to address here. No, what I'm more interested in is another archetype that I've noticed crop up across Western literature. Whether you'd call it fiction or not, I'll leave up to your own personal judgment, over and over again. And that is the figure of the Anathema. That one uncharacteristically wise man who speaks defiantly against a corrupt and decrepit order of materialistic elites, only to have that same order turn its vast might upon him and those radical enough to follow him, only to then have a resurgent phase in which their philosophy is proven true, and eventually to have their every word twisted and mangled to promote the same cynical agendas they had fought to write against. Now, the figures I'm specifically thinking of are Socrates, Pythagoras, Jesus, Marx, Zarathustra, and Donald Trump. Though there are many, many others I could throw in there as well. Some of you may balk at hearing Marx's name amongst that number, but I challenge you, have you actually read his works, or have you based your assumptions on what others, namely those within the upper manager spheres, have told you he meant by terms like the bourgeoisie and proletariat? To be clear, I'm not saying that any of these characters is truth incarnate. I'm only pointing out that I believe they all got more right than wrong, even if their errors were so profound as to make their ideals' future corruption a fatalistic conclusion. For example, in the Communist Manifesto, Marx writes of the bourgeoisie, quote, "The bourgeoisie, wherever it has got the upper hand, has put an end to all feudal, patriarchal, idyllic relations. It has pitilessly torn asunder the motley feudal ties which bound man to his natural superiors, and has left no other bond between man and man than naked self-interest, than callous cash payment. It has drowned the most heavenly ecstasies of religious fervor, of chivalrous enthusiasm, of Philistine sentimentalism in the icy waters of egotistical calculation. It has resolved personal worth into exchange value, and in place of the numberless indefeasible chartered freedoms has set up that single unconscionable freedom, free trade." Now, do these sound like the words of a ruthless, insane, insincere manipulator of human sentiments for shameless profit to you? I don't think so. I've also heard it said that, according to Marxism, the middle class is included in the bourgeoisie also. This is tangibly false, for in that same book, Marx himself laments how the rise of the bourgeoisie, by which he just means the industrial oligarchs, has slowly eroded the middle class, and in so doing has condemned the majority of humanity to bleak materialistic servitude. Again, don't take this as me making a plea for communism or Marxism. All I'm trying to do is acquit the man of the sins of his progeny. If you read his actual works and not just internet forum posts about it, you'll find that linking Marx's original thesis with what future despots and their faithful war dogs like Lenin, Mao, or Stalin have made of it is about as intellectually honest as connecting Nietzsche with Hitler and the Holocaust, as many have also erroneously done, even though Nietzsche was about the furthest thing from a fascist or a Nazi that one could conceive. In that same way, Jesus was also neither a proto-communist nor an anti-Semite, as many have also posthumously labeled him. His teachings emphasized the piety and honor of walking down a spiritual path for its own sake, rather than just as a means of seeking status or of grifting wealth off of other people's good intentions. To quote, "When you pray, be not like the hypocrites, who love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by men. Verily, I say to you, they have received their reward in full." Matthew 6:5. Also, in Matthew 6:7, Jesus goes on to say, quote, "When you pray, use not vain repetitions as the heathen do, for they think they shall be heard for their much speaking." This has little to do with my actual point, I just found it amusing. But as for the claim that Jesus is a communist, the quote most often used in this regard is Matthew 19:24, which says, "It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter into God's kingdom." But if you read a few passages before this, Jesus quite clearly makes the point that it is by virtue, specifically by keeping the commandments, specifically the ones to not murder, steal, commit adultery, or bear false witness, to honor thy father and mother, and love thy neighbor as thyself, that people can find the road to spiritual salvation. And the same is promoted by Pythagoras and Zarathustra. Only the latter promotes the idea of attaining self-mastery by deliberately exposing yourself to pain and discomfort, by becoming your own master, by renouncing your dependence on others for your bread and wine, both physically and metaphysically. It's worth noting that even though certain Eastern figures like Lao Tse, Krishna, Confucius, and Buddha are on the same plane in terms of their levels of inspiration, reputation, and interpretation, none of them, at least to my very non-expert knowledge, ever achieved the same level of infamy or controversy, either within their own supposed lifetimes or beyond, that the Western anathemas did. The reason for this, I think, is that none of them ever quite went so far as to buck the existing paradigm outright, and so never were established as a threat to the ruling elites, be they emperors, dynastic royals, feudal warlords, or entrenched bureaucrats. East Asia in general seems to have a more amiable relationship with collectivist authority than the West does. Not saying this is good or bad, it's just an observation. And I'm not the first or only one who's made it. But that's neither here nor there. Again, whether you agree with any or none of the above figures is beside the point. The point is what they, and more importantly their philosophies, represent to both their followers and to the ruling oligarchs who shame, mock, and persecute them. Jesus preached gospel that went against the dominant social and religious orders of the day. Socrates wanted people to use logic and common sense to question the dominant narratives, even if said narratives were extremely popular, and if questioning them would make you rather unpopular. Pythagoras said, "Honor what came before you, for it, whether you realize it or not, created you, both physically and metaphysically." Marx lamented how dehumanizing the industrial world was, reducing everything, including ideas, to mere commodities to be bought and sold, reducing countries to economic zones, formerly distinguishing qualities of people, age, sex, profession, education, etc., into divisions of labor, and turning people into interchangeable wage units, to borrow a later Soviet term. And of course, Donald Trump wants to return America to the days of its former glory, by which he means the much idolized post-war period of the 1950s. Or at least he says he does. The ball's still in play on that particular field. Now, a very quick admission. The impetus for my making this video is that, much like the hero, the villain, the anti-hero, the prophet, the martyr, and the messiah, the anathema is one of those archetypes that seems to appear in fiction, and in reality, with periodic, almost rhythmic regularity. And just like your Robin Hoods, your Samsons, your Davids, your Marduks, your King Arthurs, the anathema always seems to turn up, or at the very least return to relevancy, in a time of particularly unjust circumstances. A time when the very structure of the world itself seems to be opposed to the common folk's way of life, and when all the strong men have fled, and nary a wise man is left to even help them to understand their plight, who should arise from the unlikeliest of places than the anathema, born down from the desolate mountains, born in the dingiest of mangers, born under the brightest star. It doesn't matter. Their coming is both a harbinger of doom and a symbol of eternal hope. Like the big man on the cross himself once said, "Think not that I have come to bring peace on the earth, for I come not to bring peace, but a sword." Matthew 10:34. The reason I bring all this up is because I realized this is what I had been doing with my Project Outlander and Black Wolf setting, which I suppose either says something about myself, the times we're living in, or both. But I suppose we'll just have to leave that particular story to the historians, won't we? For right now, to summarize what I mean by the title, the anathema is named such, for he is a figure the ruling elites hate, for he is not merely a man, but an insubordinate idea made manifest. And with that, that's all I've got for the moment. You know the rest. Like and subscribe. Come join as a member or hop over to the Discord. Buy my books if you have an extra coin you want to toss my way, and until next time, stay safe, stay sane, and remember, those who know not, and know not that they know not, are fools. Dismiss them. Those who know not, and know that they know not, are simple. Teach them. Those who know not, and who believe that they know, are dangerous. Avoid them. Those who know, and know not that they know, are asleep. Rouse them. And those who know, and who know that they know, are wise. Follow them. Peace be upon you.